Hello and welcome to another episode of Sushi and the Swordfish. You're here with Sushi, and we're looking at my next set of films for the month of March in the year 2021. As I kind of prefaced in the last video, we have a lot to go through for this one, so I'm going to try to make things a little bit more summarized so that it doesn't take quite as long to get through them, but there is quite a few. So let's jump right in. All right, first we have A Shock to the System. This is a Michael Caine movie. I don't know how I came across this movie, but basically I think I just found a clip of Michael Caine loses his mind or something like that. And I thought that was funny. I ended up finding out that this was the movie that it was from. All of the best scenes are in the clip, basically. So it's not really bad, but it's not particularly exciting. I think I'm going to put it in the stink column. It's not terrible, just I wouldn't highly recommend it by any means. Next we have Be Kind Rewind. This was a cute film. I thought this was actually pretty interesting. Whole premise is basically a video store that's going to have to get shut down with some other shops in the block. And particularly the most deaf character, he doesn't want this to happen. And Jack Black kind of convinces him that they can make their own home movies of popular Hollywood movies. I think Ghostbusters is the first one that they do, if I remember. It's a fun movie. It's decent. I would get it into the OK USA column. Yeah, definitely track that one down if you are a fan of film. It's got some kind of cute twists. Next is Caddyshack, a very popular comedy movie. I don't know. Caddyshack was okay. I had seen it years ago. I don't know what it was. Something about it just didn't quite strike me as being as funny as I was expecting it to be. Rodney Dangerfield has some really funny lines. I can't even think of some of them right now, but there are some really funny lines, and I know a lot of people enjoy the Bill Murray performance here. But it's just an okay movie for me. Next we have Casablanca, which is a very popular movie on a lot of top of all time type movie lists. I was really taken aback by this film. I didn't expect much. It's going into my top dog category. I did not know anything about this movie, thinking, okay, I don't mind a movie that's in black and white, but I was expecting a slow pace, and it does have a lot of famous quotes and so forth from it. I just can't believe how much I enjoyed the movie. If you want to see kind of that classic golden age Hollywood film, this would be definitely one that you should check out. Next we have Cinderella from Disney. Not too much to say here. I'm going to put in the OK USA category. Again, a lot of classic, I guess, scenes from this movie. You have the mice, which are kind of the, I don't know, animal sidekicks that many Disney films kind of emulated after this. It holds up pretty well. It's very much a traditional fairy tale movie, but I think it's okay. It's not too bad. Next, we have Death Race 2000. Very acquired taste movie. I thought it was okay. It's a bit of a slow-paced movie. The theme and idea is quite interesting. Basically, just a car racing show from the future where they get points for killing people, flipping cars, and things like that. Sylvester Stallone is actually in this movie. Machine Gun Tommy or something is his name, and he's just really overplaying his character in this movie. I'm having a hard time deciding where to put this one. I'm going to put it. I don't mind the movie, but I'm putting it in the stink column because I don't think this would resonate with most film goers. Next, we have Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. The premise of this movie is awesome, with Steve Martin and Michael Caine, but it just feels like this movie is missing some element. I don't know what that element exactly is. The chemistry is not bad between Steve Martin and Michael Caine, and if they're just playing their characters on their own, they're quite good. But when they do come together on screen, it's just okay. It doesn't feel like there was a massive amount of chemistry on film. I think I watched a little bit of the kind of behind the scenes, and the two of them seemed to get along really well, but I didn't feel that energy coming off the celluloid, if you will. So I'm going to put it in the OK USA category. Next, we have Finding Dory. Again, I've kind of already expressed my thoughts about Finding Nemo. From a technical standpoint, this movie is very, very pretty. It's a very good-looking movie, but I found it even less interesting than Finding Nemo. I'm not too sure what it is. The characters are even less enjoyable and less likable for some reason. The seals, I think they're seals or sea otters. I think they're seals. They're okay, and Hank was a decent character as well. That's the septopus here. But otherwise, I just didn't enjoy this movie. So it's going in the stink category. Sorry to those of you who really enjoy this franchise. All right, we have Flashpoint next. This is a Donnie Yen movie. I think it's 2007, if I remember. This is a really cool movie. It's based in just before Hong Kong switched back over to Chinese control, or where now it's an SAR, Special Administrative Region, I believe is SAR. I'm putting this in the big money, big prizes. I love it. The final fight scene in this movie is awesome. There's a lot of showcasing MMA style moves that at the time would have been very unique in film. And MMA was definitely starting to become more popular at this time, but it's just a really cool final fight scene and it's done really well. All right, now we have Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. This is a Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer film. Both of them are excellent in this movie. I do hear some people state that this was sort of the template to getting Robert Downey Jr.'s career back on track kind of thing. I'm not too sure if this was used by Jon Favreau to show to like the Marvel executives that he was the right fit for Tony Stark or not, but you can kind of feel that a little bit in this movie. It kind of feels like an outer fringe Iron Man movie almost, just by his performance. And Val Kilmer is really, really funny in this movie. He's so straight-laced in this, but he's got some really like snide remarks that come off really, really funny. I'm going to put it in the big money, big prizes. I love it. Next, we have Knives Out, and I've heard this can be a very divisive film. I personally thought it was pretty good. I'm going to put it here in the OK USA category. And I'm kind of debating like if it might be one rung up or one rung down. I think it could really depend on my mood of the day. But it was a good movie. It was an interesting little sort of clue slash crime thriller. I don't know if it's not even really a thriller, just more like a whodunit type story. And a lot of really good actors in this. Next we have Maggie. So this is a zombie apocalypse film with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The trailer for this is phenomenal. Like you see it and you're thinking, okay, this sounds really, really interesting. And it's a really slow moving film. I do like it, but again, I'm not sure a lot of people will like it. I thought it was very interesting. We don't get a lot of action. Like if you're thinking Arnold Schwarzenegger, you might be expecting him to be running around mowing down zombies with machine guns and flamethrowers and whatever else. I think he maybe kills 2 or 3 zombies total in the movie. So it's much, much slower than you might expect. So again, I thought it was decent, but I'm going to put it into the stink category just because I think it's going to be a hard sell for most people. Okay, Once Upon a Time in the West, really, really excellent Western movie. Often ends up in the top tier lists of Westerns. I'm going to put it in the big money, big prizes, I love it category here. I liked it a lot. There's some really solid acting performances in this movie. The opening sequence is awesome with Charles Bronson. I believe his name is just like harmonica in the movie. And he, just the opening scene of the train driving by, and then it's a small shootout basically that happens within the first 15 minutes. And it's quite drawn out. So you see a lot a lot of the patience wearing thin on these characters who are expecting something to happen, and as the audience, the tension just keeps building and building and building and building before finally reaching that climax, and then the whole film carries on from that point. All right, next we have Police Story 2. It's kind of cut off here, but that is supposed to be Police Story 2 at least. Between the Police Story movies, this one is okay. It's going to go in the OK USA category. I found the first movie a lot stronger. I think that they obviously had heightened the expectation because the first movie came out so well, and the final scene of this with the factory with the fireworks and all the stuff blowing up, it's still a really fun movie to watch, and there's some pretty crazy things with like cars driving down the hills and things like that. But I still prefer the first movie. I just feel like its sequencing is a little bit tighter and a little bit less complexity to the story actually helps this, like help that first movie move along a lot better than the second movie. Now we have Raging Bull. Again, another movie I obviously have heard of, didn't really know much about. Had heard about Robert De Niro's performance and the weight gain and all of that. And this is an excellent movie. It's very good. I'm going to put it in the big money, big prizes, I love it category. Probably at the time, one of the most unique depictions of boxing in a sport that has had a lot of representation in Hollywood, I think. But this really kind of brought forward some of the reality of what happens to somebody who's a prize fighter and just how quickly their life can turn around from being super successful and loved and remembered and having a huge fall from grace. All right, next we have The Seven Samurai. I don't know what else can be said about this film. I mean, again, it comes quite highly touted. It's on a lot of greatest movie lists. Probably gets a lot of accolades also for being a film that's not made from Hollywood and really depicting that Hollywood obviously was leading the forefront in a lot of ways for films and budgets and quality and so forth. But it doesn't mean that a good film couldn't be made elsewhere. So it really helped break the mold and kind of, I guess, give people a taste of there's other great films being made around the world. It's a long movie, and it's even broken up into two parts, which was an old Hollywood type scheme that we would see where, the film would have like a first half and then there'd be an intermission and then a second half, just like a play would or a live performance. I'm going to put it in the top dog category. Again, I can be kind of swayed. It could probably go down a rung. I think the first half of the movie is actually more interesting than the second half, where the second half is a huge more battle sequence. But I think it's the first half of seeing the lives of the people that's they're going about their daily business, how these samurai come together, and I find that a lot more interesting than the second half. Some Like It Hot, a very popular comedy movie, another black and white film. It was okay. I did, again, not knowing what to expect from this movie. It was decent. Some of the jokes are kind of weird, I think, in this day and age. And I don't know how how this interpretation of men dressing up in drag might be interpreted today, just because I think we have a lot more acceptance with how fashion is accepted and gender diversity and so forth. So it may come across as like being either inconsiderate or, I mean, it is, again, a product of its time to some degree. But is that Jack Lemmons is quite funny in the movie. He's got some pretty crazy jokes. And he's just got this kind of Joker type laugh that kind of makes you, on one hand, cringe, but kind of laugh at the same point. So just some very bizarre situations that come up in the movie that, again, at the time probably were seen upon as more funny than they might be now. Next, we have the Aristocats. This is a kind of bizarre Disney movie. Again, I've seen this a long time ago. I'm debating where to put this. I think I'm feeling generous. I'll put it in the OK USA category. It's okay. There are some racial undertones in this movie. Again, later, like quite a bit later in the film, and like some psychedelic stuff with lighting and things like that. The base part of the story is decent enough. There's a pretty funny fight sequence with Edgar, who is like the butler of these cats, and two dogs. That's probably the highlight of the movie, at least for me. So yeah, I could be pretty easily swayed to put it into the stink category, but I think I'll put it in OK USA. The Fountain. Again, the very interesting movie, beautifully shot, very, very unique vision. Um, I believe this is Darren Aronofsky. I'm going to put an OK USA. I think from a technical standpoint, again, this has such unique ideas, so broad in its approach on how to tell a story and tale about love and trying to overcome obstacles. Um, and that's really neat to see these sort of different ways that Hugh Jackman's portraying his character. And I think it's worth kind of analyzing and seeing. I think from a film going just enjoyment experience, you probably won't be able to enjoy it in the same way as somebody who's very eclectically approaching film in a light of how does this camera lens make this shot look wider or narrower, or I think somebody might be more attuned to this film if they are in film studies, perhaps, than I guess this the average going public. And I'm far more in the average going public category. So, but I still found the movie quite intriguing and confusing at the same point. Next, we have the Lego Movie. Um, I've seen this movie twice, and again, I'm debating on this movie. It could potentially go in the big money, big prizes, I love it category because, on one hand, I had no expectation that this movie could be decent, let alone good. And it superseded that. It was actually pretty good. And it was interesting to cut between the Lego world, and there's actually a few real world things going on that fit with the story and make a really nice tie-in by the end of the movie. So I'm like I said, I'm kind of debating. I think I'm just going to go with okay. But again, pretty good acting performances. I know a lot of people enjoyed the Batman performance in this. I think that's Will Arnett, if I recall. And there was a Lego Batman movie and so forth after. The Little Mermaid, I'm going to throw into the big money, big prizes. I love it. A lot of people attribute this as like the movie that saved Disney in the 80s. Disney was financially in some trouble and just had kind of lost their luster. And basically, this movie came out and started this, to many, the golden age of Disney films, where you had this and Aladdin and Lion King and a few others, Beauty and the Beast. Quite a few hits came out after this. It's got catchy music. The animation still looks quite good. Kind of a timeless fairy tale story. So I think it's a good movie and still recommend it. And Ursula is a great villain. The Magnificent Seven. So this is basically a Western telling of the Seven Samurai. I'm going to put in big money, big prizes. I love it. And I could probably be swayed to put this even in the top dog category. It's cut a little bit shorter than the Seven Samurai, so it cuts some of those elements that make the Seven Samurai feel a bit more real, and this is a bit more fantastical. However, a lot of amazing actors in this: Charles Bronson, Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen. I'm missing some. I can't even think of who else, but it's just a fun movie. It's just like, even though the ending again mimics the Seven Samurai and follows the same sort of pathway, it's the ride. The ride of this movie is quite exciting. It's done well. Next, we have The Naked Gun. This franchise is probably one of my favorite comedy franchises. There are 3 films in the series. I'm going to put this one here. It's not my favorite of the series, but I do recognize it as just kind of, this movie kind of comes out of nowhere. The TV show that was on, I believe in the 70s, had a short run and then kind of, I think, was considered sort of a flop to some degree. And this movie comes out of nowhere, and it's just got some timeless jokes. It's just a really, really funny, worth watching at least the first one. The Seventh Seal, which is a Swedish film and stars our friend Max von Sydow. This goes in the big money, big prize. I love it. And again, I could probably be swayed to put this into top dog. This is a really good movie. Very slow paced movie, though. It has a super iconic scene with the Max von Sydow character who's coming back from the Crusades, and he plays chess on the beach side with this entity that is Death. And Death kind of stalks not only him, but many of the characters in the film. And just it's this whole idea about the finite amount of time you have on Earth and how do you live your life. And some people with their fear of death, some people who don't fear death, some people who switch across that maybe they didn't fear death and now they do, or vice versa. The ending is quite bleak, I will say. It not for all characters, but for some, it does end up being bleak. A black and white film, again, probably very well studied by film students and historians and so forth. I really enjoyed the movie. All right, and we're gonna follow through with 3 Toy Story movies here. I'm gonna just throw them right in. So I really enjoyed the second one a lot. This one I thought was the strongest and most enjoyable and sort of provided fan service and so forth in the movie. So I really like the second one. And then 3 and 4 are actually quite strong too. It's crazy to think that this series and franchise has lasted as long as it has, and they have huge kind of gaps in time between each film. I guess the first 2 were not a huge gap, but then the third one was quite a long time between 2 to 3, and then I guess 3 and 4 are somewhat close, but there is still a bit of a gap in time. And the toys, they continue to look more amazing, obviously, with the technology improving. But the characters, they feel really timeless and likable. Be interesting to see if they make a 5th. Next, we have Unforgiven. Clint Eastwood directed and starred in film. Also has Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman. I think they would be the big 3 main actors in the movie. Really, really interesting movie. It's basically, think of like Clint Eastwood's character from the spaghetti westerns, the Dollars trilogy, and now he's like an old man and he's kind of living out his life, and something happens where he needs to leave the current life he's living and kind of go back to his old ways. It's shot really well. It's really, really interesting movie. Good flow to it. Not like there's downtime, but you don't feel bored during the downtime. It's acted well, and it's just got a great kind of climax to the movie. Next we have Up. This is the only movie in its, I guess it's not really a series, it's just kind of a solo film. I really like Up. I know some people say it's melodramatic and so forth and so forth. I just think it's interesting to see a different kind of set of characters. This movie doesn't focus on just your traditional young person as the hero who has to overcome some obstacles. This is an old man is like your main character, and then he's met with these other kind of goofy and kooky characters, and some of the scenery is just unbelievable, and just the backdrops with the house in the sky with all the balloons, and it's just a pure light sky blue color. It's done really well. The first 15 minutes of the film are I won't say much basically, but an adult is going to see those first 15 minutes and feel something very different than a child is going to feel. But there's still enough in this movie to entice adults and children to enjoy the movie. And next we have Wayne's World 1. I'm going to put it in the big money, big prizes category here. Hope I can get it in there. Again, I like both of the movies a lot. More people probably have a stronger affinity to the first film, but they're both really, really fun movies. A lot of really iconic shots and jokes, and sometimes I can't even decide like which movie I would prefer to watch. And not only that, sometimes I just feel that both movies are so similar that I might think a joke is from the first movie, but it's actually in the second, or the second joke has jokes that are actually in the first. This one has the really famous scene though with all the product placement and the jokes about I would never sell out and eating Domino's pizza and drinking Pepsi, which is, I think the joke is something like the taste of a new generation, which was like the slogan at the time, and so forth. So it's pretty funny. And again, Rob Lowe does a really good job playing the villain here. Both movies have great sort of antagonists, and then they play off really well against Mike Myers and Dana Carvey's characters. Okay, well, thank you for joining for our look at the movies of March 2021 that I watched. I really enjoyed quite a few of these movies, and even though they're in an okay, or even if they're in the stink pile, you might still find something in those films that you enjoy. I just kind of trying to couple not only my feeling of what I thought about the movie or felt that was good or bad about the movie, but just also not to really recommend necessarily, but just thinking on the wider audience really has to have a certain sense of I'm trying to think of what that sense might be around this movie. And generally speaking, it might take a very specific type of film goer or somebody who has a very specific interest in a genre to latch onto one of those films. So until next time, I will catch you down that road. Thanks.